In today's video, we're talking about a crime in Arizona called indecent exposure. We'll take a look at the statute, we'll take a look at the elements that are required for a person to be charged with indecent exposure, then we'll look at the different sentencing provisions that could apply if a person is actually convicted. So where is the law for indecent exposure? It's in Arizona Revised Statutes 13-1402, and these are the different elements. If you look up the statute, you'll see a big long sentence, but we've broken them down individually so that we can review them one at a time. First and foremost, a person needs to expose themselves. They need to expose their genitals, their anus, their nipple, the areola, the area around their nipple. It needs to be exposed. They need to take it out and show it to the world. Then another person needs to be present. So if a person does this in front of a camera or they do it alone by themselves in the middle of the woods, that's not going to meet this element. Another person needs to be present. And then finally, that conduct, so the act of exposing themselves with another person present, has to be done recklessly. They need to be reckless about whether or not that person who is the recipient, who is seeing this, would be offended or alarmed. And you can see here the statute includes this specifically. It says, as a reasonable person, would they be offended or would they be alarmed? The reasonable person standard is a concept in the law. We're taking a look at a person who, under the same set of circumstances, under similar facts, would a reasonable person in that position be offended or be alarmed? Not would that one specific person be, but would a reasonable person. So it's more of an objective standard. We're asking, would a normal, reasonable person, an everyday individual, be offended under these same facts? So an example would be, if this happened in a locker room, would it be reasonable for a person to be offended at seeing somebody else naked? No, that would not be reasonable. People are naked in locker rooms. They go to the shower. That's what they do. But if somebody did this at a baseball game or a sports stadium, any reasonable person in that stadium would say, this is inappropriate. They would probably be offended and alarmed. So it would meet that element. So if all of these elements are met, what are the potential penalties? There are a couple different variations here, so let's take a look at how they work. If a person is over the age of 15 and they are the recipient of this indecent exposure, the crime is going to be considered what's called a Class 1 misdemeanor. So in Arizona, we have misdemeanor crimes and we have felony crimes. Misdemeanors have three classes, 1, 2, and 3. Class 1 is the most serious, so it's at the top. For felonies, we have a Class 1 is the most serious, Class 6 is the least serious. So if it's the age of 15 or above, it's going to be a Class 1 misdemeanor. If it's under the age of 15, it's going to be a Class 6 felony. It's going to bump it from a misdemeanor charge up into a felony charge. It's considerably more serious because felonies have a lot more stigma around them. You can't own a firearm. You are not eligible for certain benefits anymore. You lose your right to vote. There's a lot of repercussions if you're convicted of a felony. If you have 2 or more convictions for indecent exposure, the third one can also be charged as a felony. So even if you're charged with 2 misdemeanors in your past and you get charged with a third one, can be a felony. And if you have prior felony convictions for indecent exposure, you can be subject to a much more serious range of penalties. So if you have indecent exposure felonies in your background and you get additional ones, you can serve this sentence here, so a presumptive term of prison for 10 years. So you can see here, somebody who's repeatedly committing indecent exposure and they're doing it to people who are under the age of 15 and they do it repeatedly and they have multiple priors and things, they can very quickly be looking at a very, very long prison term. MIT stands for mitigated. This stands for minimum. So we look a mitigated sentence of 6 years, a minimum sentence of 8 years, a maximum sentence of 12 years, and an aggravated sentence of 15 years, with the presumptive being 10 years in prison. Very, very serious stuff. So you can see how how these things can really escalate very quickly. Now, it's important to note that this does not apply to breastfeeding. So if you have a newborn child and you're breastfeeding your child in public, that's okay. It's not going to be considered indecent exposure. Your baby's just hungry. So if you know somebody who's been charged with indecent exposure, if you yourself has been charged or somebody you love has been charged with indecent exposure, give us a call. We offer free case evaluations. We handle these types of situations all the time. We'll have you come in, meet with our team. We'll put together a plan to make sure that we can move forward with your case in the best way possible, give you high quality, focused representation to ensure that we can handle this and you have the best outcome that's available under the law and under the facts of your case. Give us a call. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks for watching.